guys, so this week I decided to participate in the Top 5 Wednesday. I know for them they are doing their top 5 books that they want to finish this year, but I decided to change it just slightly. Instead, I'm going to do the top 18 books I want to finish this year. Oh, by the way, I'm going into these books really not remembering much about them, so if I say I think this is about something, then it's because I'm not reading the synopsis of the book. I'm just going off what I remember. When I first decided to do this one, I knew immediately what book off the top of my head, well, which 2 books off the top of my head I wanted to read this year. That is, of course, Kingdom of Ashes, which does not come out until October or September. I can't remember. I think it's October, though. And then, of course, there is Furyborn. But, of course, I've already started this book, so I'm going to complete it before the year is out. So, that's out. I think I'm about 50 or so pages in. Yep, at this point I'm 52 pages in, and it's pretty good so far. It's losing my attention on certain parts, mostly to do with one of the queens, because we pretty much already know what's going to happen with her story because of the beginning. You're told a lot of things, not maybe everything, but pretty much you know everything that happens with her life and everything. So I'm less interested in her point of view, but I am really interested in Elena. So I'm very interested in Elena's story, but I am still enjoying the book though. The next book I have is Bloodsong by Kat Adams. This is the first book in the Bloodsinger series. Now this one I ended up picking up number 5, I believe, and while I didn't actually read it because when I looked it up on Goodreads to get a star rating on it, I found out that it was book 3, and so of course I wanted to start from the beginning of the series, and so I ended up buying Bloodsong. But from what I remember of reading the back of number 3, I believe she is some sort of siren, and then something to do with a vampire ends up turning her into a succubus. So I don't know if she was a siren, she got bit by the vampire, and instead of turning her into a vampire, it made her a succubus. I don't know how it works, but I do remember she ended up changing species somehow, because she no longer looks like anyone from her original species. She has white hair and white skin, as you can see, although in the book she has dark hair. I don't know what that's about, but it sounds really interesting, and I want to see how this change of species came around. And I've always wanted to read books about succubus, not succubus who are demons trying to steal men's souls, but actual succubus who are good, I guess. So I guess you could say kind of a book, kind of like Lost Girl, the TV show, if you know that show. If not, it's a really good show. You should try it, especially if you like all sorts of different mythologies and fairy tale retellings and different sorts of paranormal creatures. So from werewolves to furies to succubus to... God, I can't even think of anything else. There's all sorts of different creatures in that show. So if you like those kind of things, definitely try that show. So like I said, I'm really looking forward to reading this one. I'm thinking it's one of the books on my immediate TBR shelf. So I think it's like number 5 down. So I'll be getting to this pretty soon. This book I've actually read part of before, but I wasn't really feeling it, or I wasn't in the mood for it because I wasn't really enjoying it. Even though what was happening should have been really intriguing me, it just wasn't. So I decided to give it another shot at a later date, and that is Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. Everybody loves this series, especially a lot of people I follow here on BookTube. They love this series. I had a similar reaction to the Throne of Glass series, although I love that one immediately. So a lot of the people who recommended the Throne of Glass series also recommended this series, and so I really do want to give it another try. Next is Anti-Goddess by Kendar Blake. From what I understand, this somehow centers around the goddess Athena, and all the gods seem to be getting sick and are like coughing up feathers and things. And so it's basically, can a god die, and how do they die, and what happens when they die is kind of what this book centers around. And if the goddess Athena, who I believe is now in human form, if she can stop all this. I believe there are 3 books in this series, and it's called The Goddess Wars. Next is The Forbidden Witch by Jessica Corshi. This, from what I remember, is a Aladdin retelling with the genie being female, and that's all I really remember, but I've never read an Aladdin retelling before, so I really want to try it. Next is Wonder Woman Warbringer by Leigh Bardugo. And yes, I do have a signed edition. I think I got this from Barnes and Noble when it first came out. And when I picked up this one to add it to the stack, I found something very funny. I use all sorts of weird things: bookmarks, spoons, knives, clean ones, of course, receipts, pieces of random paper, gift cards, library cards, all sorts of weird things. But this one, can you see that? It is a needle. I'm not sure if I put this in here as a bookmark, because I really don't think I did, because I don't remember ever starting this book, and it has to be at least, the spot it has to be in is at least 100, 200 pages deep. So I don't ever remember doing this. So I'm not sure if I left it in there as a bookmark or if it just somehow accidentally slid in there. Either way, very weird. I'm gonna replace that spot with something else, because like I said, I don't believe I ever have read this. I think it just accidentally slipped in there somehow. Next I have The Bone Witch by Ren Chapeco, or Chapico. I honestly don't know. Nobody can seem to agree, and I don't believe I've ever seen an interview with her, so I've never heard her pronounce her name, or his name. Her name. So this one is about a bone witch, of course. This is about a witch who can practice necromancy. They are very rare. I believe she is the first one in like a few hundred years. Rosie! And she has to go off to this this school basically for other Asha, which is what they are called. They are called Asha, not witches. And it's kind of like, you ever seen Memoir with a Geisha? There was this one scene in there that was totally Memoirs of a Geisha, where she's told to bring the coat, and then the 2 girls get a hold of it and slightly ruin it. But instead of ruining it in the scene, they like stick her in it. And I'm like, oh, this is going to go completely terribly wrong. And then I had to put the book down for some reason. And then I just never picked it back up. And it got stuck on my TBR shelf again somehow. Oh yeah, here, my bookmark is still in here. There's my TARDIS bookmark. I thought I'd lost it. And I am on chapter... There's no chapter heading. Hold on a second. I guess one of these things had chapter headings. Nope, no chapter heading. So I don't know what chapter I'm on, but I'm on page 97. So almost 100 pages in. I mean, I was really enjoying it, so I can't remember why I stuck it back on the shelf. I must have just seen it lying around the room and thought, okay, I haven't started this yet. Let me go stick it on my TBR shelf. Yeah. So, but I do really want to finish this one. Next is AntiDarkened by Kirsten White. This is a female Vlad and the Impaler retelling, and I believe the 3rd book comes out this year, if it's not already out. I can't remember if it is out or if it has not come out already. So like I said, this is a Vlad and the Impaler retelling, and I hear there's a love triangle going. I believe I heard someone once say that there was a love triangle going on in here, but it's between Lada, her brother, oh god, I can't remember her brother's name. Okay, there's a love triangle going on between Vlada, her brother Radu, and another guy. I'm not sure how that works unless the other guy is like bisexual or something. But I hear this is a very dark, bloody book, and I like those every once in a while, so I want to give it a try. And Dracula, especially Bram Stoker's Dracula, was always my favorite movie as a kid, so I definitely want to read this. I highly doubt she'll become a vampire, because I haven't read a single person's review where they said this becomes a paranormal book. So I'm interested in seeing if it will follow the history and she just dies or something, or what happens. Next book I want to finish this year is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. A lot of people love this book, but as I've said before, science fiction is not something I reach for. Science fiction is not something I reach for, as shown by my unable to finish Zenith yet. for some reason, Illuminae, I think maybe because it was more action-packed and it was all told in a different form, that made it a lot easier to read, because Zenith I'm having a bit of a problem with. I'm having a problem getting through it at this point. And so I'm worried the same thing might happen with this one, and it's good. Zenith is so good so far, but it's not keeping me. So I'm worried the same thing might happen with this one. Maybe I can only read science fictions that are told in a different format. I don't know. But either way, I want to give this one a try. This one is a Cinderella retelling in space. And Cinderella, I don't know if you can see it from the cover, the metal inside her leg, because she is a cyborg. So I want to give it a try at least once. Now this one's not technically a book. This is Miss Marvel No Normal Volume 1 or Edition 1. I don't know what it is. And this is about a Miss Marvel, and I believe she is of Indian descent. So I definitely want to see what different takes this makes on the graphic novel. And I've been trying to read this forever, and yet I just keep not picking it up. So it's all going to the top of my list. I can't say the very top, but it's going towards the top. Next is The Wicked and the Divine Volume 1. I actually have started reading this before, but again, like the other books, I stopped for some reason. I can't remember why, but I think another book that I had been looking more forward to came out, and so I picked that one up and read it and just didn't pick this one back up. But I made it to about this part right here, and that's more than halfway through. There's probably maybe 50 pages left out of the whole thing. But this is about gods who come back every 100 years, I want to say. Oh, no, wait. I say every 90 years, 12 gods return as young people. They're loved, they are hated, and in 2 years, they are dead. It's happening now. It's happening again. So every 90 years, these gods are reborn, they live for 2 years, and somehow they die. Whether they're killed or they just die, I don't know yet. So I do want to finish this one up. Another book I want to finish this year is Winter Song by Eston Jones. This is a Labyrinth retelling, although I've heard quite a few people say it's, other than it being trolls and troll kings and a sibling going to rescue their sibling, there's not a lot about this that screams Labyrinth, and I'm told the end is not quite the best, but I still want to give it a try. Because there have been quite a few series where I heard, oh, it's not that good, and I ended up really liking those books, so I want to at least give it a try. Next is Some Girls Bite by Colleen Niels. This is the first book in the Chicagoland Vampire series, and it is about a college girl who ends up being saved from a vampire attack, and the guy who saves her ends up turning her into a vampire. And I do know that later on in this series they do start a relationship, and I believe he's like the king of Chicago, or like the High Lord or the Vampire Master, whatever you want to call him. He's basically that. And I know they do get into a relationship in later novels, but that's pretty much all I know, and that's all I really want to know. And it's very rare you find vampire books that are good, and I've heard quite a few people, years ago of course, recommend this one for people who love vampire series, so I definitely want to try this one. And I do believe she becomes a vampire hunter in later books, because the later books you always see her in like leather pants and tops with a huge sword, so I want to give it a try. Next I have Boyfriend from Hell by Jamie Quaid. This is about a girl who gets into a fight with her boyfriend and then tells him to go to hell, and literally ends up sending him to hell. Justine, or Tina as she prefers to be called, ends up finding out that she is actually a daughter of Satan. I believe there's 4 books in this series. I'm not quite sure, but it sounds really interesting. I've never read about the daughter of a devil, or I've never read about a daughter of the devil or Satan or anything like that, so it sounds really interesting, so I want to read it. Next I have Fate of the Flame by Sarah Rogeley. This is, from the tagline, was Sailor Scouts meets Transformers, I think it was, but I do definitely remember it was a Sailor Moon theme thing. So these are about beings named effigies, and effigies are basically kind of like, if you ever watched Sailor Moon when you were younger, it's basically Sailor Moon. And the fire effigy dies, and then her power is automatically supposed to go to someone else, and then Maya ends up becoming the fire effigy. And so she has to not only learn her powers, but fight these things called phantoms, which I guess kind of like in Sailor Moon, they were like the shadow things that would come out of the ground. So it's kind of like that. And I really want to read that and get some kind of Sailor Moon feelings, because I used to love that show when I was younger. I hoped it would like be on Netflix or something, but I haven't been able to find it. And all the ones that I found on YouTube, the full episodes at least, are in Japanese with no subtitles. Next, I have Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is the Black edition. I know everybody was like raving about this. I just picked it up at my local used bookstore. So Six of Crows is kind of like the Italian Job. There's some huge heist that they have to do, and I guess it's supposed to be like enough money to make them, let them live out the rest of their lives in wealth or something. And so yeah, I hear a lot of people like this duology, so I figured I might as well at least give one of the books a try. And the reason this is at the top of my list is because I've been putting it off for years and years, and it just keeps getting knocked further and further and further down the list. So I figure I might as well put it on my immediate list. That way I have to read it sometime. Especially if there's another book in there I really just don't want to read, then I'll pick this one up by default. Next is Stealing Snow by Danielle Page, and as you could probably guess, this is a Snow White retelling. So Snow is in a mental asylum, and she's been there as long as she can remember, and one day she kisses the boy that she's in love with, and he suddenly goes completely crazy, and then she starts hearing voices from the forest, I believe, calling her, and there's something about her like being a lost queen or princess or something like that. I liked her Dorothy Must Die book to a certain point. Then there was a certain point where it just started like it was dragging, like they did the book way too fast paced, and so then they had to fill in the rest. And then the ending, what could have been accomplished, was not, and was stretched into like 4 other books. So I gave up on that one. And so I really do want to read this one, and thankfully this one is a standalone, so I know whatever needs to be accomplished in this book will be accomplished in this book. Well, those are the books that I want to finish before the year is out, and I will see you guys next time.